mirë se keni ardhur në punëtorinë për politika shëndetësore që bashkë organizohet me Wennberg International Collaborative. Është e para e llojit tillë që po mbahet në Kosovë, kështu që kemi nder të madh. Është sinqerisht ditë e veçantë edhe po mënej për disa prej neve, është për projektin, është për AMC, e cila ka marrë barën kryesorit organizimit. Me këtë rast kisha pas qef me ndani tregim personal, që një farë mënyre e ilustron edhe pse jena tu e bo këtë ngjarje. Edhe po besoj që shumë për juve keni tregimin nështë me momente tjera që ndërlidhet me kështu që mundi me u bashklidh me mu. Pas studimeve, do me thonë mjekësore, pas luftës, në vend se kirurgjia që ka qenë prioritet për mu me kry, do me thonë gjatë studimeve, interesi më kaloi krejt në sistemet shëndetësore, në politikat shëndetësore. Nështë që u shlirun pe i sërbëve, një farë ndjenje adin duhet me ndërtu sistemin shëndetësor, edhe ajo më orientoj në Londër, më orientoj me kry programin e magistraturës në London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, edhe atje një për temave që mas shumë t'in kalon për shtypje ka qenë dështimi i tregut shëndetësi. Dështimi i tregut shëndetësi, mos efikasiteti i tregut në shëndetësi, që nën kupton që resurset që janë në dispozicion, mjekt, pajisjet, furnizimet nuk shfrytëzohen në mënyrën më efikase të mundshme, do të thonë mujnë me u shfrytëzu më mirë. Dhe kjo shpesh ndodh për shkak faktorëve të ndryshëm të vetë sistemit shëndetësor, shpesh ndodh edhe për shkak sjelljes profesioniste shëndetësore. Edhe e kryva magistraturën, po e kryva edhe bile temën e magistraturës e kum pas në market failure, do me thonë në dështimin e tregut shëndetësi, e pata marrë rastin e njërit për departamentet e QKOK-s, departamentet që ka punu babaja, që me kallzu që s'pe bën punën mirë, edhe, po ajo që ka qenë problematike është që nuk u pata bind me metodat që i pata përdor. Nuk pata bind me metodat që i pata përdor. Me metodat që nështë a ishdasht me i përdor, pata ronë kontakt në 2007-2008, do me thonë, kur pata pas në qasje në Dartmouth Atlas, do me thonë që përrodhohet nga the Dartmouth Institute for Health Policy and Clinical Practice, edhe ajo që ka më dok shumë interesant është që koncepti bazë të në është që të e këqyrë variacionin, të e këqyrë ndryshimin mes një institucioni, një institucion tjetër, ose një region tjetër, ti mund është me ardhë një farë mënyrën konkluz, edhe të njëjtën kohë të i këqyrë cilët faktor, do me thonë për ndërlidhen me këto regione dhe me këto institucione, po edhe me individual providers, do me thonë me ofrues të shërbimi individual, ti mund është një farë mënyre me kuptu çka është të ndodhë në këto sisteme shëndetësore. Edhe cilat janë ato faktorë që janë të i shkaktu, do me thonë ndryshimet ose mos efikasitetin në ofrimin e shërbimeve shëndetësore. Kjo më ka shty masë ne me bo një Fulbright Fellowship, edhe ajo është fitu me ndihmën, do me thonë me përkrajen e Dr. Jim Strickler, që ka qenë një për mentorëve për Dartmouth Community, edhe atje kum shku me mësu bashkë me David Goodman, që është një për themeluzve ose një për grupës kryesor që ka nisë këtë bised në Dartmouth, po edhe në përbot. Edhe me këthem masënej u pata bashkan gjitë projektit Kosana, do me thonë me idenë që mi apliku këto koncepte, edhe për 7 vjetë jemi mundu me përdor gjana që bojnë kuptim me të mundu me i përdor këto koncepte për kontekstin politik ose të politikave shëndetësore në Kosovë. Në njëjtën kohë, edhe doktoratura pet me David Goodman, do me thonë ka qenë e ndërlidhur me studimin e faktorëve të sistemit shëndetësor, edhe çush ndikojnë ata në ofrimin e shërbimeve shëndetësore. Gjërat e mira që i mësojmë, edhe pse nështë se kemi bashkë tradit në Kosovë, po munohemi, s'paku disa për neve, është nështë më e mira me i nda me tjertë. Edhe që kjo është që ka jemi të bo sot, që kjo është që jemi të bo në workshopin për politika shëndetësore, po mundohemi çdo gjana që i kemi mësu, jo vetëm une, po si thash edhe plot prej neve, me i nda me juve, edhe që ky grup i njerëzve që e këshyrin funksionimin e tregut në shëndetësi në Kosovë, nështë me bo punë hala ma serioze se nështë jemi mënuna dhe i tash me bo. Është me rëndësime e cek që i vend spaku të fushës teme të profilit më të naltë se ky, do me thonë Kosovë nuk e di që është majtë, është partneritet që Wennberg International Collaborative është partneritet që është vendos me LSE dhe Dartmouth, faktikisht Dartmouth Institute for Clinical Practice, edhe sot janë nështë po mundohemi mi bo dy gjana kryesore. Një është po mundohemi me nda studimet e ndryshme të cilat janë punu në Kosovë, edhe një element tjetër është jo veç studimet, jo veç konstatimin e problemeve, po mundohemi edhe disa shembuj, do me thonë për sesione, që nështë është jo ma tipikja do me thonë spaku takimit që bojmë me research, do me thonë në Angli, me nda edhe praktikat e mira që veç kanë fillu mu praktiku, do me thonë prej akterve të ndryshëm në Kosovë. Gjanat e mira edhe të vlefshme nuk ndodhin vetë, ndodhin me kolegë, ndodhin me organizata partnere. Në kontekst, kisha dasht me falenderu, do me thonë, po më ne jo veç për sot, po për kejt rrugën e gjatë, do me thonë që 7-8 vjetë që punojmë shëndetësi Solidar Suisse, në veçanti, do me thonë Suzanën, e cila ka besu, do me thonë, këtë ide që e kemi ndjek, edhe kemi bo shumë gjana on the way. Atë njëjtën kohë kisha dasht me njënin për organizatorëve faktisht kryesor aksionin për nëna dhe fëmijë. Aksionin për nëna dhe fëmijë, në veçanti Vlorianin dhe Mrikën, do me thonë që një farë mënyre krejt këtë organizim e kanë koordinu, edhe krejt kolegë tjerë që janë bashkë këtu me neve, edhe të njëjtën kohë edhe kolegjin Heimerer, po më ne i cili një farë mënyre është ka bohët një shtëpi e re, do me thonë e mendimit tillë, me një interes shumë të madh që nështë me avancu, si do në mas në pjesën akademike. Okay. Qëllimisht, kemi, do me thonë për këtë event, kemi thirë njerëz direkt. Do me thonë për ato nështë nuk i kemi 100-200 veta këtu, po i kemi, do me thonë, njerëz të përzgjedhur, njerëz me cilët kemi punu, ose njerëz që, do me thonë, kanë pas interes në metodat e tilla, edhe ju falenderoj shumë që keni ardhur. Me këtë rast, kisha pas që vetëm me shpalos edhe ato që kemi mendu, janë disa sesione, 3 sesione që kemi, faktikisht 3 sesione që i prezentojmë punën, edhe sesioni i fundit është sesioni i diskutimit. Në sesion kemi paramendu, do me thonë, prezentime prej personave ndryshëm që kanë qenë të kyçën në Kosovë, edhe ma gjanë, kemi edhe disa mysafir regional që po shpresojmë ndërkohë që mujnë me mri edhe me qenë prezent, prej Rumanis, prej Macedonisë edhe prej Shqipërisë. Me këtë rast kisha pas qef, i kemi 2 fjalime kryesore, një është prej Suzanës, prej Solidar Suisse, po në i Solidar Suisse është babadimri i kësaj ngjarje, do me thonë e ka financu pothuajse komplet, edhe kam dëshirë, do me thonë mja fjallën, edhe të njëjtën kohë kemi një fjalim që është i inqizum prej David Goodman, i cili për shkak pamundësisë për me ardhë, do me thonë e ka inqizu në mënyrë që me nda për shtypjet e tia për këto që jemi të bosat. Suzana?
Faleminderit Ilir, mirëmëngjesi. Zonja Zotri, përfaqësues institucione vendore, ndërkombëtare, shoqëri civile, hulumtues, student, koleg, miq, partner, media e kështu me radhë. Mirë se erdhet në eventin i cili organizohet për herë të parë në Kosovë, Pontoria për politika shëndetësore, e cila është organizuar nga Aksioni për nëna fëmijë, Kolegji Heimerer dhe Solidar Suisse. Si shpeshani dhënë dhe Iliri, pak kena emocione, edhe pse po na buën 8 vite të punu në projekt, po është një moment kogja kyç, vendimtar për projektin, po shënojmë 8 vite veprimit në fushën e sigurimeve shëndetësore ose në reformën e sigurimeve shëndetësore. Është për herë të para ngjarja dhe normal që ka emocione dhe ndjesi pozitive. Solidar Suisse, që është nga krijimtaria deri më tani gjithmonë punën e vet e ka bazuar në 2 shtylla kryesore. Është pjesëmarrja dhe demokracia, që ne kupton që ne kujdesemi dhe zgjojmë shumë interes që të fuqizojmë, organizojmë dhe mobilizojmë shoqërinë civile me marrë pjesë në proceset vendimarrje. Shtylla tjetër është ne dëshirojmë të krijojmë kushte sa më të mira jetese, jo vetëm përmes domethënë ekonomisë, po edhe përmes reformës dhe sigurimit social dhe shëndetësor. 8 vite më herët ishte një moment kogja kyç dhe vendimtar për mu, brenda Solidar Suisse, po edhe për tërë ekipën, ku bashkan gjithë dhe Iliri, si menaxher i projektit Kozana. Kozana në domenin e vetë do të thotë pro shëndetit, pro një të drejtet thelbësore, pro një të drejtet njerëzore, pro një të drejtet të pa kontestueshme. Kozana për këto 8 vite, zbashku me gjithë bashkëpunëtorët dhe partnerët, ka arrit, ose s'paku ka bërë përpjekje me punu në organizimin, në krijimin, në mobilizimin e partnerëve tonë, qoftë të grupeve të ndryshme të pacientave, qoftë të profesionistëve shëndetësor, që të përgatiten ta ushqejnë, ta them ashtu, ta ushqejnë me elemente kogja vitale reformën e sigurimeve shëndetësore. Përveç kësaj, jemi mundu bashku me partnerët tonë të avokojmë, lubojmë përmes punës hulumtuese, përmes argumenteve, postulimeve dhe fakteve, statistikave që ta ridizajnojmë ose dhe hartojmë më mirë pa kombazike të sigurimeve shëndetësore. Sot, këtu, e tha dhe Iliri, po e theksoj dhonë, zbashku me juve, mendojmë të shkëmbejmë ato përvoja, ato praktika, po dhe të mësojmë për regioneve tjera, qoftë brenda këtu, qoftë jashtë, si ta ushqejmë më mirë politikë bërje në Kosovë, si shoqëri civile të jemi më aktiv dhe më argumentues, më vendimarrës karshi nevojave tona. Këtë kjo punë nuk do të ishte e mundshme pa përkryer financiare të një partneri më besnik, që i ka besu parimeve dhe vlerave të Solidarit, zyrës për zhvillim bashkëpunim zvistrane, të cilët i falenderoj mënyrë pashtershme për gjithë këndime 20 vjeçare në Kosovë. Pa mundshme do t'ishte pa pasionin, pa vullnetin dhe gatishmërinë, po dhe besimin e partnerëve tonë, që në këtë rast janë të shumë, po i përmendi disa të cilët kanë kriju momente kyçe në reformë, Aksioni për nëna dhe fëmijë, Federata Sindikale e Shëndetësisë, Instituti për Studimet të Avancuar në Infirmeri, Kolegji Heimerer, Shoqata Kombëtare e Diabetit, Shoqata Kombëtare e Autizmit, Balkan Sunflower në Kosovë e shumë të tjerë. Në mos prezencën e kolegut tim, Cyril Rocker, i cili është edhe përgjegjës për programin e Evropës Juglindore në Kosovë dhe Serbi Bosnje, ju përshëndet, ju dërgon urimet më të mira për këtë punëtori, mbarësi dhe sukses. Unë dëshiroj të ju falenderoj gjithë juve pjesëmarrësve, që në një numër të përzgjedhur jeni këtu, ju do të ndihmoni këtë aktivitet, i cili është i karakterit të rrallë dhe për herë të parë në region, që të vazhdoj, të organizohet dhe të jetësohet më tutje. Për fund, ndihem e privilegjume e bekuar që kam bërë një përzgjedhje shumë të duar të ekipës së projektit, të cilët me shumë pak mjete, me shumë pak ndoshta burime, kanë arritur ta sjellin programin në këtë formë. Veçanti falenderoj Ilirin, Albanin, Mihanen, po dhe ata që kanë përkryer në mënyrë me faktor mbështes projektin, Zaimin, Arjanin dhe Arten. Faleminderit, mbarësi, sukses në punëtori.
Faleminderit shumë, Suzana. Atëherë po vazhdojmë me fjalimin e David, edhe ju ftoj që ta ndiqni së bashku me mua.
My name is David Goodman. On behalf of myself and the Dartmouth Institute and my colleagues, I'd like to welcome you to the Wennberg International Collaborative Kosovo Workshop. It's fantastic that you are gathering together and I appreciate the chance to offer my own thoughts and comments on the important work of measuring healthcare. The relationship with Dartmouth and Kosovo extends back 20 years, initially through the efforts of Dr. Jim Strickler, who used to be the dean of the medical school at Dartmouth, and then followed by many others at Dartmouth, as well as partners from Kosovo. And in the last 10 years, a collaboration between myself and Jack Wennberg. Jack is on the left and I'm on the right, with Dr. Lear Hoja, who visited Dartmouth in 2009 and has been a steadfast friend and collaborator ever since. The agenda of my talk is to discuss the measurement of healthcare across populations within a country. There's been extensive work on this topic, particularly in the US, but increasingly across other high-income countries. And there is some work that's been done in medium-income countries, but there are some barriers and issues that I'm going to touch upon. To get ourselves oriented, I would first like us to think about epidemiology. Many of you have had some training in epidemiology, and this definition will be familiar, that is defined as a study of the distribution and the determinants of disease frequency in human populations, and the application of this study to control health problems. So epidemiology is simply the measurement of health in populations. And it describes both trends and distributions of disease and identifies associated determinants. And it reveals variation in health across locations and population characteristics. Let me give two examples. The first is the classic example of the occurrence of cholera in London in 1854 as measured by John Snow. This is a map of Soho in London, and at that time there was a privy, an outhouse, if you will, and the sewage from that was seeping into the Broad Street pump, and this led to death from cholera. And you can see the location of these deaths. It was quite an outbreak, and the outbreak was put to rest when the handle on the pump was removed. But so healthcare has an uneven distribution, or rather health has an uneven distribution across locations. And today this is still true. This is a map of diabetes prevalence in the US, and you can see that it goes from less than 10% to almost 13% with this geographic unevenness, as well as this clustering in the southeast part of the US. So why am I talking about the location of disease prevalence? Is now I want us to think a bit about how healthcare varies across different places. We would all agree that measuring health is essential to building a healthy society, and I assert that measuring healthcare is just as important, and that we can apply the methods of epidemiology in this effort. So let me give you an example from where I live. This, this is my twitchy mouse here. This is northern New England. This is the state of Maine. This is the coast of Maine. Great seafood. This is New Hampshire. This is Vermont, and this is where I'm sitting right now. This is where Dartmouth Medical School is. Now, if you visited Boston, it would be a little bit further south here. New York, another 150 miles down along the coast. Canada is obviously up here. And what we've done is we've taken the region and we've divided the geography into what are termed hospital service areas. These are regions where the population tends to seek its hospital care. Generally, there's one, but sometimes there might be 2 or even 3 hospitals in one of these regions. And what we find is that the rate of, in this case, children hospitalization varies a lot from place to place. So you can see it's as high as 17.9 per thousand children and as low as 6.3. And there are places that are high in each of these states, and there are also regions that are low in each of these states. And this raises, I think, important questions. These are, very different rates. These are not explained by chance, so this is not statistical noise. This is, and the question is, why in Rutland, Vermont is the rate so high? Why in this region is the rate so low? It's important to know this distribution. it's also important to understand what the causes are, and then to turn to see if there are ways that we can lower rates when they're high and improve the experience and outcome of populations. So that's an example of measuring healthcare across regions using epidemiologic methods, and reveals variation in the delivery of services. We're particularly interested in what we call unwarranted variation. This is variation in healthcare that cannot be explained by patient illness or patient preferences. So we've already talked about, and obviously, that health status can vary from place to place. So you might wonder if there's something about these places that lead to children just being less healthy, and these places are healthier regions. Well, I can tell you that that's not the case, that this is a relatively homogeneous population, and that these differences in hospitalization rates do not reflect differences in patient illness levels, and they certainly are not related to patient or family preferences. That means that it's unwarranted variation, and unwarranted variation is a variation that is explained by health system performance, and it represents opportunities for improvement. So that's what this is all about. This is the great value of doing this work, is that once controlling for population differences, then one can begin to understand how healthcare is performing, how it's functioning in different places, and ideally what you're doing is you're able to hold constant the health status of that population. Now, just like health epidemiology, like classical epidemiology, medical care epidemiology has two aspects. There's a descriptive aspect, where one can describe trends over time in the use of healthcare, or the outcomes of healthcare. It is also descriptive in just showing utilization of different types of healthcare, just as I've shown you, over regions or by hospitals. So there are ways, and we can discuss this in a few minutes, of assigning patients to hospitals. And I bet that my colleague Stephanie Tomlin will talk about this more later on in the meeting. And from these descriptions, one can also generate hypotheses, come up with possible explanations that then could be examined in inferential studies, such as what causes high quality care, or simply what causes the variation, what causes underuse or overuse of care. So how does this fit into the broader field of health services research? Health services research has lots of different areas that are studied: payment methods, comparative effectiveness, equity, quality, efficiency, care coordination, and it also can focus on particular populations such as the beginning of life, or women's care, or care of those that have multiple chronic conditions, or end-of-life care, all with the interest of improving what the Institute for Health Improvement in Boston calls the triple aims, that is, improving health, improving patient experiences, some would say improving healthcare, and in lowering costs. But this field of medical care epidemiology is a subset of health services research because it involves population-based measurement, that is, over large populations, typically using very large data sets. So just to make that distinction. So the rub, of course, is the data, and the data is often incomplete this is true in every country. While we have very good data, for example, in the over 65 population in the US, we have incomplete data for younger populations. And countries in Europe, this varies a lot from country to country, simply whether they only have hospitalization data, whether they have ambulatory data, whether they have data for the entire population or just certain social insurers. But it's particularly can be problematic in medium-income countries. But there are things that can be done, and so I'm going to offer some thoughts about this in the rest of my talk. The first thing is it's important to define these relevant regions of care so that you can measure care in its place, in its appropriate place. This may be based on where patients seek care, as we've done in northern New England with the hospital service areas, or it may be in regions which administer health care, that is, regions which are responsible for the health care of the population. And I believe that's the case in Kosovo, and certainly is in some other countries. Obviously, you use available data, and some examples of that: almost all countries have vital records data. Now, vital records which record births and record deaths. You say, well, what can you get out of that information about health care? Cesarean sections is an example of one commonly recorded medical care event, one that's of importance globally in terms of preventing some underuse, but preventing certainly overuse. Vital records in some countries, I'm not certain about Kosovo, often record prenatal care. In other countries, the use of neonatal intensive care. You would want to look at your own vital records data files and see what information is present there. The other information that's relatively commonly available is information about the supply of healthcare capacity. That is, a number of doctors, where they practice, their specialties, perhaps nurses and hospital beds. And I'll come back to that. And healthcare expenditures, which in the U.S. can vary very dramatically from region to region, and varies in Kosovo and other countries as well. And then when available insurance claims, and one doesn't have to have insurance claims for an entire country to do this work. Some very fine work has come out of Switzerland and Germany, for example, when they've only had information from one generally large social insurer. The other method, and this is a method that Dr. Lerhoja has pioneered in Kosovo, at least from my perspective, is some very clever collection of data through focus surveys. This could be random samples of populations residing in those regions, and depending upon what you study, the sample size doesn't need to be tremendously high as long as it's random. But the other could be sample of patients hospitalized for particular conditions or type of care, and I'll come back to this as well. I would recommend that you always work with clinicians in planning studies that affect healthcare. There will be clinicians who find this threatening. I would seek out possible allies, those who can become your champions of the work, and can help to communicate it to the clinical community. And also, it's important to strive for as much transparency as possible with other stakeholders, including those involved in health policy, and this sometimes means working with politicians, which is a good idea. Let's look at an example of measuring the supply of physicians across regions. Here we have child health physicians per 100,000 children. This is pediatricians and family practitioners. And we're back in northern New England with Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire. And we can see that the supply of these physicians varies a lot from place to place, really very dramatic differences. Again, there are some places where you would expect physician supply to be very high. This is where Dartmouth Medical School is. But there's variation across these other places which are served by community child health physicians as well. And here we have primary care physician supply in Kosovo across municipalities. I have to say this is outdated data provided by Lerhoja. This is one of his slides that I'm showing now from a while back. But it just is an example of using available data about a really important aspect of healthcare, which is the availability of physicians, and showing how this availability differs. Now, some of this, of course, might be expected because Pristina has an academic medical center, is a teaching hospital there, but some of this variation really is not expected, and I doubt, but I could be wrong, that it's explained by differences in need. This is generally, in most countries, the distribution of physicians is dictated by, quite honestly, where physicians would prefer to live, which is understandable, but is a problem for the population. So here we have an example in Kosovo of what I believe is unwarranted variation, not explained by patient need or preferences, but that's something that you folks can discuss over the next day. Here's an example from the U.S. of the variation in spending across regions. Let me give you a little orientation. This is northern New England now. This is Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, rather Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Boston is here, New York is here, okay, and so I live in a relatively small place, in obviously a very large country. These are hospital referral regions. These are regions of tertiary care. And then this is for the Medicare population. These are the over 65 population. And this is the spending per Medicare beneficiary per year, the average spending in the regions. And you can see that it differs by more than threefold from one region to the other. This is not explained by differences in health status across these regions, and it is a public public concern. Now here's an example from Kosovo of expenditure per person across regions. Again, some outdated data that was supplied some time ago by Dr. Hoja. Actually, this again, I'm borrowing one of his slides from the past, showing this variation. So this is relatively straightforward, descriptive medical care epidemiology, and it leads to all sorts of interesting questions. Is this warranted variation, unwarranted variation? And if it's unwarranted variation, what is the cause of this? Now I'm going to turn your attention to the use of surveys. And this again, a paper by Dr. Hoja, which was recently published in looking at health system factors associated with cesarean section rates across hospitals in Kosovo. So these, four of these hospitals are unnamed, and then the University Clinical Center of Kosovo is named. These are cesarean section rates across the women who were delivered in these different hospitals, and again you can see it differs quite a bit. And these are some of these rates are very, very high, and certainly higher than, they're in a range of use that the WHO would be concerned that this is overuse. I will say that there are, of course, high-income countries that have rates as high as this and even higher. So this is not a problem specific to Kosovo or medium-income countries, but you're sharing some of the same problem that we find all over the globe. But this data was collected on the ground by a team led by Lear. He can talk about this, and I think done very efficiently at a reasonable cost, providing really interesting information. And Kosovo and some other countries in the region are small enough that if you have a specific question, I think that this is a really excellent approach, which is to devise low-cost ways of collecting the data through surveys. Sometimes this means collecting data from specific hospitals. This is, I think it's fair to say that this is largely unwarranted variation, although I'm sure that there are some differences in need across these populations. It's interesting, of course, that the hospitals that you would expect would have the highest risk patients have the lowest cesarean section rate. So what can we learn from population-based studies of medical practice variation? I've shown you some things that we can learn, but now let me sum up a bit. First thing is, one can derive detailed measures of quality and efficiency of healthcare across large populations. Depending upon the data that's available, one can examine patterns of care both before, during, and after hospitalization occurs. Often one can examine mortality. In addition to the vital records data, of course, hospitals record inpatient mortality. Getting that data may be a little tricky, but that data certainly exists. And these analyses can identify the causes and consequences of differences in health system performance, both across clinicians and regions, or rather clinicians and hospitals, keeping in mind that the regions are designed really to reflect the care, obviously, that's delivered by the clinicians and hospitals to that resident population of the regions. The analyses can provide transparency. What's ideal, but sometimes difficult, is to make this available, this information available in the clinical community and policymakers, and the public has an interest in this, excuse me, as well. And it's been shown in many countries that public reporting really encourages public engagement. It increases the pace of improvement. It does sometimes annoy and upset clinicians. How you handle that, obviously it's not the place where you want to start. You don't want to start by upsetting potential allies, but over the long term, that sort of public transparency is important. It can assist in identifying quality and efficiency benchmarks, and it certainly stimulates and can provide methods of improvement. It can aid improvement. Now, this doesn't happen all at once, and in the Wennberg International Collaborative, we have lots of countries that are in very different stages of development of this work, and so I'm going to share a framework of the developmental stages of medical care epidemiology. It first starts with exploratory studies, and these are opportunistic in the sense that they start with what's easiest, what data is most available, but still an interesting question. They are descriptive. They are not generally related to a particular theory in terms of the cause of the variation. These are cross-sectional studies, and they often focus on utilization. But over time, studies turn to inferential models, and if you were to go back and look at Alir's paper, that was an inferential study, actually. He was looking at the association of different aspects of care with the variation in those cesarean section rates. So over time, the work turns to explaining the variation or trying to explain the variation. That often requires shifting to different types of study design and looking at outcomes beyond utilization, such as health outcomes or costs. From this, one develops ideas and theories about the causes within a country of variation, and this can lead to remedies to establish ways of improving care, and this improvement requires continual measurement, of course, so that medical care epidemiology should be part of the surveillance of health in a country, just like we do surveillance of different sort of diseases and different statistics like infant mortality rates on a routine basis. We should continue with surveillance of medical care so we can measure new problems that occur as well as our progress towards improving care. In terms of dissemination and transparency, as dissemination increases, one should expect that at a certain point there is going to be pushback and resistance, because after all, fundamentally this is measuring health system performance, and those who are delivering care, unfortunately at times can look at this as unwanted, this sort of information, and it's important to communicate in effective ways that engenders that's collaborative and that engenders identification of allies. Not everyone is going to applaud. There are going to be people who are going to be unhappy, but what you're striving for is to identify some allies in the clinical and policy community who can help continue to carry the work despite possible resistance. I'd like to end this talk with a quote from my mentor and the founder of this field, John Wennberg. This is what he wrote in his paper in the journal Science. This is the seminal paper in medical care epidemiology. And in his concluding remarks, he wrote that population-based health information systems, because they can provide information on the performance of healthcare systems and regulatory agencies, are an important step in the development of rational public policy for health. That was in 1973. It's true today. Thank you so much for your interest in this field and your attendance at this important meeting. I'm sorry, very, very sorry that I have conflicts and was not able to attend. But here I am sitting in my office with my flag and hoping to wave you on. And be sure also to try to come to the WIC meeting next year in Seoul, South Korea. It's going to be a large meeting. There'll be a lot of interesting presentations. And you can also visit our website. Let me just show this to you. Here we are. All sorts of information at this website. And where are we here? Here you are. okay, in Pristina, here on our website. Thanks very much and have a great meeting. Bye-bye.
Atëherë, faleminderit për durimin. Kisha ftu domethënë panelin e sesionit parë për kujdesin për newborn care, domethënë me ardhur këtu në tavolinë Dr. George edhe tjerët. Apo vini këtu, po? Okay. Edhe po fillojmë domethënë zyrtarisht me sesionin